When you think about the Old Testament, have you ever thought of it as one long story about a single question? Where is God? Well, today we're going to trace the tangible, visible presence of God as it moves through history. It's this grand, unfolding narrative of being close, being far away, and then finally a promised return. Okay, so let's dive in. The best way to picture this whole thing is like a giant U-shaped journey. It starts at the very top in this ideal state of perfect presence, then it dips way down into a period of loss and exile, and then it begins that slow climb back up toward a future hope. This arc, it perfectly captures the entire story we're about to unpack. So let's start at the very beginning of this journey, right at the highest point of that U, in a world where the fellowship between God and humanity was perfect, with absolutely no barriers. And that ideal state, of course, is the Garden of Eden. Think about it. There's no temple, no priesthood, no need for all the rituals, because there's nothing separating God and humanity. His presence is right there, totally direct. The garden itself is the sacred space. And then it all changes. Sin enters the picture and creates the very first barrier. Humanity is driven out, away from that presence. And notice the direction. They're sent east. Now, this eastward direction of judgment, that is a key detail. I want you to hang on to that. Just like that, presence is lost, and the long exile begins. So as we start heading down into the bottom of that U-shaped journey, that direct walk in the garden, access to God, is gone. Instead, we see these new, structured ways for humanity to try and get close to Him again. In this next phase, God's presence is definitely with His people, but it's not settled, He'll show up to guys like Abraham and Isaac, and they build these rough stone altars to mark the spot, to say, God was here. It's a promised presence for sure, but not yet a localized indwelling one. Then, the next massive shift, and I mean massive, happens during the Exodus from Egypt. God's presence is no longer just a momentary encounter. It becomes this constant, visible, and frankly, terrifying pillar of cloud by day and fire by night. This powerful visibility, it leads directly to a brand new command. And here it is, the turning point. For the very first time since Eden, God commands a physical dwelling place to be built among the people. Exodus chapter 25, verse 8 says it plain and simple. Let them construct a sanctuary for me, that I may dwell among them. So they build the tabernacle, this incredible portable sanctuary. And it's not placed on the outskirts. No, it's at the literal geographic center of the Israelite camp, with all 12 tribes set up around it. God is now dwelling at the very heart of His community. But, and this is a big but, unlike Eden, this presence is now highly structured. Access is carefully managed through layers of holiness, so anyone could go into the outer court, but only priests could enter the holy place. And only the high priest could go into the most holy place, where God's presence was most concentrated, and he could only do it once a year. And this brings us to the next big stage, permanence. That portable tent is eventually replaced by a magnificent stone temple in Jerusalem. Now God's presence is geographically fixed, it's tied to a specific city and the kingdom of David, and it becomes the absolute center of Israel's entire identity. Which brings us to the lowest point of our journey, the abyss. This is the moment when the presence, the very thing that was so central to everything, tragically withdraws. In the book of Ezekiel, we get a slow, painful, almost play-by-play description of this departure. The glory of God physically lifts up from the most holy place, moves to the threshold of the temple, goes out through the east gate, and then just moves away from the city entirely, leaving behind an empty shell. It's heartbreaking. But even here, in the depths of exile, something profound and pretty shocking starts to happen. A new understanding of God's presence begins to emerge. For the Israelites, this was a total shock to their system. I mean, how could God be present outside of His holy land in a pagan empire like Babylon? But He appears to Ezekiel right there. And this just blows up their understanding of God's sovereignty. He wasn't confined to a building or a border. He was with them, even in exile. This leads to this really deep tension when the exiles finally get to go home and rebuild the temple. The building is back, sure, but something is missing. The Bible never says that the visible glory of God returned to fill this second temple like it did the first. So the Old Testament actually closes in a state of waiting, of anticipation. And that very anticipation, that's what leads to the turning point of our whole story.
It's the ascent back up the U, back towards restoration, all promised in a stunning prophetic vision.
This is the great hope of restoration. The very same prophet Ezekiel, who had to watch the glory depart, is now given this incredibly detailed vision of a new, perfect temple. And in this vision, the glory of God finally comes back. And this time, the return comes with a brand new, rock-solid promise. In Ezekiel chapter 43, God declares, "I will dwell among the sons of Israel forever." The key word there is forever. This isn't just another temporary stay. This is about a presence that is permanently secured. Okay, now let's connect the dots. Do you remember that detail I told you to hang on to? The direction the glory departed? It moves slowly, deliberately, and very specifically out through the east gate. Well, here is where the profound symmetry of this whole story is revealed. In Ezekiel's vision of restoration, he sees the glory returning, and it's coming from the exact same direction it left, from the east. This is what we can call the great symmetry. From Eden, humanity was driven east in judgment. From the temple, the glory departed east in judgment. And now, in the great hope for restoration, the glory returns from the east. The very path of exile becomes the path of homecoming. And the story culminates with a brand new name for this restored city. It's no longer just called Jerusalem. Its new name will be Yahweh Shammah. And that name is a definitive statement. It means, quite simply, the Lord is there. It's a declaration of a permanent, unwavering, complete divine presence. And so, this entire journey, from a garden with no barriers, through a long and painful exile, to a restored city, it leaves us with this final thought to chew on. What does it mean if the ultimate hope of this whole grand story isn't a victory, or a new law, or some big event, but simply a guaranteed, unending presence?